so that the recording is available to people to watch again or for others who couldn't join the live session to benefit from this later. The yin and yang of risk and resilience. The topic today and the fourth session is the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency test. Yes, it's an art, which means it can be learned and it can be mastered. No one is perfect in this world, but we should always look forward to improvements. With that intent, let me start the discussions with the help of some slides that I have created for ourselves this afternoon. I will not go through full details. In short, the name is Daman Dev Sood. About 4 decades in the industry, about 2 decades in resilience. I played different roles, have been a practitioner, I've dirtied my hands myself, trainer, consultant, author, 8 books published, 9th to be out on 15th of next month. I won awards nationally, globally, multiple times, and I volunteer for social causes also. Anand will be joining a little later, but on his behalf, I'm talking a little about him also. He's the co-founder and the CEO of Udbata Technologies, which is a startup in GRC space. Before that, he has played multiple roles, being the CRO of a company. He's a qualified CA, over 23 years of experience in the industry, holds practical experience in business finance, enterprise risk management, insurance, etc. Has exposure to pharma, auto, and ITES industries. And he is a national and international speaker in multiple conferences, summits he has spoken so far. Well, the topic is the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency test. The question first is, what is a resiliency? How do you define a resiliency? Because there have been confusions around this. We use different terms in the world. Business resiliency, IT resilience, finance resilience, just resilience, operational resilience, organizational resilience. In between doubts that it's all about BCM. It's just a new name for BCM, business continuity. So we need to define this for ourselves. A live example is a global giant was in touch with me if I could deliver a resiliency testing for training for their employees. And my first question would be, please let me know how is resiliency defined in your organization. It's a global giant. This question couldn't be answered well, and that's why I couldn't design, develop, and deliver that training for them. With months and months of chase in multiple years, because this request would come again every year, I could understand that they had an IT resilience tool, and their intention was training around that. A tool just for IT resilience, but they would call it resiliency testing. Resiliency testing training them. So this is very important step. The very step first to understand what does resiliency mean to us. While we later on today in this session are going to be focusing on the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency test. We may find somewhere this definition: ability of an individual, system, or organization to bounce back from a stress is a resiliency. And in this, we would need anticipation, adaptation, continuous recovery, and improving. This continual improvement is required in the resiliency also. The stress may be defined as a disturbance. When at the top it says ability of an individual, system, or organization to bounce back from a stress, it may be a disturbance, an interruption. We use different terms also: disaster, crisis, etc. Today, I'm not going deep into that. I also make this statement. In the past, we used to say people make organizations. Today, I say resilient people make resilient organizations, which then make resilient communities and societies, which then make ultimately the resilient planet that we all look forward to. So in between somewhere, we need to think of personal resilience as well. Or I wouldn't mind if someone says the one starting point is personal resilience. To make it easy for ourselves, I have designed this house of resiliency. This is my house of resiliency. These are the walls, floor, and the roof of my house. There's a concept, organizational resilience also. There is an ISO standard for organizational resilience, ISO 22316. If we go deep into that, we will find 20 components. Anything and everything that happens in the organization. I set up to develop a tool for resiliency maturity assessment. My starting point was ISO 22316, organizational resilience. I ended up adding 4 more components into that. That's the most comprehensive view. But when we look at that, when we look at those 20 or 24, 20 plus boxes, components, some of those are quite obvious, some of those are not so obvious. So to stay within our limits, my house of resiliency is made of those components which are obvious. Later on, we need to expand this to organizational resilience to the 20 plus components. So incident management starting point, not necessarily in this order, but in all put together make my house of resiliency. So incident management, emergency management, EHS, employee health and safety, crisis management, IT disaster recovery, risk management, business continuity management, crisis communication. Someone may say that that's part of crisis management itself, so no challenges there. Physical security, information security, and cyber security. So these 11 components, according to me, I'm saying is house of resiliency. That's what then I should be testing as a resiliency testing. In this, while we are ending the list with information and cyber security, even if you look at the global reports and studies, including World Economic Forum, Global Risk Report of this year, the cyber security is gaining importance. It is happening. Many organizations in past couple of years have been attacked. So cyber attack, for example, and for that reason, even in operational resilience, there's a lot more focus on cyber portion. Information security and cyber security go hand in hand, but I make a statement, and for that reason, I have kept physical security before information security. There is no information and cyber security without the physical security. And for that reason, I did not want to exclude physical security from my house of resiliency. So these 11 components may be 11 different programs running in an organization. I wanted to draw your attention towards some common challenges that I have come across, I have seen, noticed, observed while playing different roles, having been across companies, countries, and industry sectors as an auditor also. So this is a combined view. I'm starting with from the top. The context of the organization is not known or is not documented. So in your resiliency test, this may be what you would like to test. That's why I'm sharing this list. Common challenges. This becomes a checklist for you to go back to your organization, and when you are designing the next resiliency test, a combination of all of these or one, two, three of these immediately, you can do that. That's why I'm spending time on this. Truly speaking, if you follow any ISO standard, so management systems according to ISO standards, this context of organization, and the second point that I'm saying, interested parties, are almost in the beginning, within the clause 4, which is the first actionable clause. And I find these missing in almost all organizations, even if those have been certified for years and decades. So this is a gap, area of improvement, or area to test in the organization in your resiliency test. And truly speaking, if you don't know the context of the organization, of my organization, for example, and or the interested parties for my organization, I cannot do well on any of those programs. All these programs are interrelated, and this portion is common. Risk appetite, everyone knows, but no one knows is kind of the situation. When I say knowing risk appetite, not that you just tell me a value, needs to be documented. You show me the documented risk appetite, that's very good. But it's not good enough. The next point is, how did you create, find, or establish this risk appetite? So there should be a process, a documented process. A documented process is a written, reviewed, approved. At least this, but the story doesn't finish here, doesn't end here. Once it's approved, it needs to be published. Once published, it needs to be used. When used, then only this risk appetite value is established. Once this product of that process is established, product has been produced, it needs to be published to the world, relevant interested parties. And when interested parties know, then they need to be using this. This is the whole cycle, and not only for risk appetite, this is for all activities that we do. For example, quickly, in your business continuity journey, if you tell me my RTO for process A is 3 hours, how have you established this? So your BIA methodology, process, written, reviewed, approved, published, used. And over a period, this process also needs to be maintained. And all this could become component of your resiliency test. Similarly, risk management. what I've found is that risk champions have not been trained well, have not been trained formally, due to which the work is impacted. Whether you're maintaining a risk register or an incident log, processes, when I say, do you have a process? People do not understand what does process mean. Having a process documented, reviewed, approved, maintained, up to date. Then organizations continue doing simple exercises. The moment you start thinking of resiliency test, you're moving one step further. But again, it's a long journey, it's a continual journey. A lot needs to be done, a lot can be done. Today, the expectation is testing scenarios. Which scenarios? Even if rare but plausible. Communication is not good, is not enough, is not effective. So there could be a test in which you are just testing communication. Staff don't take evacuation seriously. Top management does not evacuate during drills. Evacuation area or safe assembly area, multiple challenges. Not known, not enough, not designed well, not maintained well. And various departments work in solos, while we are talking of synchronization, integration. There are multiple plans, multiple tests, varying views, objectives, and expectations. Having smart people is not bad at all, but having smart people at top is also a risk for an organization, or can become a risk for an organization. Sometimes your interested parties do not have time and intention to go deep. They trust you based on what you tell or what you show them. So these smart people at the top are able to write good stories, even if or while at the back end, they may not be so good. So that's what becomes a risk of having smart people at the top. And performance monitoring and continual improvement of resiliency testing. The PDCA cycle of continual improvement needs to be followed in resiliency testing also. You could have picked up 1, 2, 3, all to make it a complex resiliency test for yourself. That was the reason of spending time on that. This slide also is telling you something like that you may like to improve upon these points. So similarly, these may become the resiliency testing part for you. Do your employees understand organization's VMV, vision, mission, and values? Do they know? Do they understand? Do they live to these? Do they know the purpose with which the organization lives? Or it's only at the top level? How effective is your goal setting and performance appraisal process? Asking this question, easy. Answering, first, perhaps we need to define what do we mean by effectiveness of this process. You may have your own definition and there is no challenge in that. Where do you stand with respect to your employee satisfaction and your customer satisfaction? Maybe, maybe not. It's not mandatory, but are you following NPS, Net Promoter Score also, which is one of the techniques that has been gaining popularity? Is good, easy, effective? And do you measure any other satisfaction levels? Interested parties. So if you have 10 interested parties, you need to be looking at their satisfaction. So maybe there are 10 different scores. There are 10 different surveys. Maybe I am saying you may devise different ways of seeking the feedback, satisfaction, but you need to, because you have identified those to be your interested parties. Going deep into this, even for resiliency testing, You need to identify the interested parties. One of the risks in a resiliency test is that an accident happens during the test and a person is injured or sadly meets with death. So you need to be getting in touch with the family. So family also is interested party. I have given one example, but family is an interested party, family of the staff, which means you need to know their needs and expectations. You need to work on for their needs and expectations, which means you need to seek their satisfaction also. So perhaps a new survey being introduced by them today. Spending time on importance of resiliency testing. By the way, why should we do this? This ensures reliability of plans and arrangements. If you have not conducted a resiliency test, whatever plans and arrangements you have, you do not know the reliability. Assurance level may be zero, low. So by conducting, you will be more assured about your plans and arrangement. It helps identify vulnerabilities. So the objective is not to find mistakes and faults in people or arrangements. The objective of a resiliency test is to find areas of improvement. It helps in budgeting, builds confidence of all relevant interested parties, internal, external, employees, board, customers, regulators, citizens, general public, if they are your interested party. It helps in getting better insurances, ensures compliance wherever required possible, helps in raising awareness and building resiliency capabilities, reduces last-minute shocks, provides competitive edge. If you have conducted a resiliency test, your competitors have not, then you have an edge over them. Helps in improving top and bottom lines, your financials, commercials, enhances resiliency ultimately. As I said, it's an art to design, develop, and deliver a resiliency test. So there is a 3D approach, which is my copyrighted approach, not taken from anywhere else, or may not exist in any other book. You design, and some components of design are, for example, knowing your audience, the interested parties, the purpose of the test, and the scope of the test. Basic minimum in design. You need to do that. And then you come to developing the test, which means comprehensive plan, scenario, cases, and expected results. After developing a test, a resiliency test, only you will deliver. So 3Ds approach. There in delivery, the last step, last D, you will execute according to the plan, record results, issue report, and take actions to closure. So there is so much work to be done in a resiliency test. Designing, developing, and delivering. Communication is important during BAU. Importance of communication increases many folds during crises. All programs, 20, 24, 20 plus, 11 in my house of resiliency need communication. Resiliency testing also needs communications. So I'm spending time on this communication cycle, which I have developed. Those of you who know business continuity and the standard ISO 22301, 2019, clause 7 talks of communication. And if you follow this cycle, you will be in compliance of the requirements there, that clause. Very simple view according to me. And I say, who communicates? So we are going clockwise from top. Who communicates what, to whom, when, and how. If we take care of this, our communication will be very good, will be effective. So who in this cycle is the author of the communication? What is the content of the communication? Whom is the audience, the target, interested parties, recipient of the communication? When is the time or frequency? Issued at 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. To be issued at 12 noon. Every Monday, once in 3 months, etc. And the last one is how, which means the medium that you will use for this communication. It may be email, phone call, notice on the notice board, notice on company's internet, some update on the internet website, press release, a report, a news item in the newspaper or on the radio or TV. As a good practice, all this should have been decided in advance. So this communication cycle is should be part of your communications plan or crisis communications plan. We are focusing on crisis. When we say resiliency, one portion is crisis management. So for resiliency testing also, you need to identify your interested parties and you should take care of this communication cycle. Who communicates, what, to whom, when, and how. Whatever we do in life, whichever program, 20, 20 plus, or 11 in my house of resiliency, we should look at the performance of the system. So we need to look at performance of our resiliency testing program also. Yes, resiliency testing also is a program or needs to be run as a program. So once again, if you go to clause 9.1 in ISO 22301-2019 version, we will find the requirements of performance evaluation there. So A1 if it's written in ISO 22301, which is for business continuity management. I'm repeating that these principles are valid for all other management systems also. So what will be monitored and measured? How will this be monitored and measured? Manual readings, automated readings. What analysis will be conducted? Who will conduct this analysis? Who will be monitoring the frequency or timing of the monitoring or taking these readings? Who will analyze, who will produce the report, what type, what kind, what content, format, template of the report, and who will receive these reports or this report, the performance evaluation of a program. Today we are saying the resiliency testing program. The objective is not to just produce a report. So we need to look in this program, need to write in this program, how will these reports be used? I'm producing for the CEO, for the board, for the crisis management team, for a resiliency team. But what will they do with this? That also needs to be understood while we design the whole system. I'm not going to read next 4 slides, but I'm showing so that the content is available with you. You can stop the recording when you are watching recording and you can go through this. Common actors, all these programs, 11 in our focus. We would need to have business unit owners. Quickly, I've written some simple responsibilities also. Communications lead, compliance manager, incident or crisis or crisis commander or crisis manager. Consultant, maybe not. Consultant may be internal also, not necessarily external. Your EHS Committee may be a different name in different organizations than your EHS manager. Someone who may be the specialist for EHS, emergency response coordinator, emergency response lead, environmental engineer, HR lead, incident response manager. Now, whether you need to have all is not a rule at all. In simple, small organizations, one person may be playing multiple roles. In large, complex organizations, we may like to have so many. Industrial hygienist, information or cybersecurity manager, information or cybersecurity lead, it may be CISO, internal audit lead, IT lead, or IT disaster lead. Maybe same or maybe two different people. Legal and regulatory lead. At least in simple one, we'll say a representative from legal department, even if he or she is playing multiple roles. Network security engineer, occupational health nurse, operations lead, physical security lead, program sponsor. Every program needs to have sponsor. Nothing comes free in this world. Who will provide the budget for that program? Who will provide the budget for resiliency test? Even the resiliency test is not free or does not come free. Safety engineer, security analyst, security architect. Security personnel, maybe the guards, senior or top management, social media management lead, spokesperson, support leads, technical lead. And in listing these roles once again, the benefit for you is this is a readily available checklist. Using this, you could design your next resiliency test. Big gap is that people do not know who is the spokesperson in our company, in their company. What are they supposed to do? What are they not supposed to do with respect to being spokesperson, public figure, PR, public relations officer, or media manager? What am I allowed? What am I not allowed to do with media is not known, not understood. And what are the implications if I do? If you tell me, Daman, you are not allowed to speak to media or to interact with media, that's only half of the story you have told me. And that's not good, resilient organization. You need to tell me the other part also, which is then who is Daman, and this person, he or she is the official spokesperson. I may say still is not complete story. You need to tell me a little more, which may be 1/3, it may be less than 1/3, 5%, 10% portion, which is what are the implications, Daman, if you interact with media while you are not the official spokesperson. Design a test around this. You can do that. So all of these points, last 4 slides, are helping you to do that. Again, this slide, which will help you in designing the resiliency test. You will notice that today we will be spending a lot of time on designing and development itself. Delivery portion we will not be able to touch. Because if design is good, your development and delivery will also be good. So this slide also is helping you to take inputs for your next resiliency test. Do not panic. Common do's and don'ts for all different types of disasters or crises we may have. Panicking doesn't help at all. Do as directed. Please follow the instructions. Have a written, tested practice instructions. Now this don't panic and do as directed is for all people, all staff, all employees of the organization, while the third one is for the organization. At the organization level, have a written, tested, practiced instructions plans. Do not believe and do not spread rumors. This is once again for all. Do not do that, please. I'll recommend and I do myself. During crisis management, tests, each communication, I would like to pass on this message. Do not panic, do not believe, do not spread rumors, and you are not the spokesperson. Only the spokesperson is allowed to interact with the media. Again and again, I would like to enforce these messages. Be aware of helplines, internal numbers, external numbers, even if it's one common for the country, or the internal number, if there is any. Most likely, most organizations have an internal number which is with the security, or which is the security number. And the last one I'm saying, keep employees happy. So this once again is at the organizational level, and take care of your customers during your good times, so that they are reasonable with you during your bad times. Bad times means when you might have faced a disaster or a crisis. Cybersecurity and information security is part of a resiliency, my house of resiliency. So quickly, a slide. This was with me also. For long, I wouldn't understand the difference between information security and cybersecurity. And I understood, I believe all of us understood information security before the cybersecurity. So I've attempted to develop this slide once again. And if you feel, Daman understood so far, you said whatever you displayed, discussed, that could play a role in designing the next resiliency test. But this slide is not helping us in designing the test. No worries. Conceptually, there is some learning, there is some awareness and training in test also. So perhaps this is that component that we can do. And based on that, then we can do a test also. Information security, which is the left column, and cybersecurity, the right column. Information security protects all types of information assets, which includes digital and non-digital. But cybersecurity is about digital assets only. That's the first difference. Information security focuses on all types of threats, but cybersecurity will focus on digital threats only. Information security principle is CIA triad. CIA is confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Cybersecurity may be called a subset of information security, with no offense to cybersecurity experts in the world. There is a standard, ISO standard for information security, ISO 27001, but currently there is no ISO standard for cybersecurity. I said resiliency testing is a program or needs to be run as a program. So few points around that also. It would make sense to draw up a program. When I go out to audit organizations, if I ask this question is not answered well because they do not have resiliency testing program, or they have not understood what does it mean. Even if some organizations they show me an Excel sheet, most likely, which is a schedule of tests. The one this year we have scheduled 1, 2, 3, 10, 30 tests. That's only a schedule of tests, which is one component of the program. There are perhaps 10 other components required in a program. My suggestion will be, look into any program plan of your organization. Go to your QMS. Maybe there is a template there. My expectation is there is a template for program plan. Look into that. You will understand what does this mean. And you need to create that plan for resiliency testing also, because it's a program. If you're not able to find a template, I'm sure you'll still be able to find a program plan, the filled one, of any program. Look into that. It'll start making sense to you for a resiliency testing program also. Alignment and collaboration will ensure synergies and huge savings, money, and effort. Information security needs to run some tests. Business continuity needs to run some tests. Physical security needs to run some tests. Why can't we do an integrated test? That's why it's an art to design. Can I design? And answer is yes, I can design a test, which I will call resiliency test, which is a combination of information or IT plus physical security, admin plus the business community. Instead of running 3 different tests, we will run one test, which is of high complexity also. So that provides more assurance also. Over a period, all components must be tested. So this is how you can plan. This is how or why you should plan. Over 1 year, over 3 years, over 5 years, we will do so many tests and we'll keep increasing the complexity. Raise coverage and complexity over a period, drop a schedule of 3 to 5 years. If your business strategy is for 3 years, then you plan resiliency testing also for 3 years. If your business strategy is for 5 years, you can go up to 5 years for your resiliency testing program as well. And buy-in commitment of all relevant interested parties. This will happen with communication. And that's why we spend time on communication also while discussing the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency tests. Follow that communication cycle. Who communicates what to whom, when, and how. Approaching towards end of discussions before we go into communication, question answer session. As I had said, in today's session, we may not be able to spend time on delivering and developing portion, but we have done a lot of discussion around designing of a resiliency test. So quickly showing some components. You need to look at date. Initially, perhaps we start running tests on non-working days. Please move to working days also. The time is important. Again, initially we might have done in the lean period. Please do a test, run a test at peak period also, because a disaster, a crisis doesn't come with an appointment. It can happen on a working day. It can happen on a working day during your peak periods. So test your capabilities around that as well. Venue, where are you conducting this test? My suggestion is after COVID-19 pandemic, work from home, which now is being called hybrid or remote working rather than saying home. Please conduct tests around that also. And very important, scary. When I say scary, means deep. Tests can be designed around working from home. Then your start and stop points. You can say we are running for 3 hours. You can say we'll work for full day, 2 days, 3 days. You can say we will start at this date time, on this day time, but we'll stop the moment we find the first defect, failure. Much better word is the first improvement point or action point, or we'll go up to 10 at least, whether it takes 1 hour or 1 day. All this is to be considered while designing your test. Nothing comes free in this world. Resiliency testing also is not free. You need resources for resiliency testing, and this is a consideration at designing level itself. You need people. So who all? Process, technology, maybe, maybe not. Facilities, That's what we are talking about. Whether it's a tabletop exercise, for example, you need a room only, or whether you are actually moving people out. Is it just a discussion based, or are you actually going to bring a server or an application down? Equipment for testing, at least laptops, desktops, printers. Transport, if you're moving people. Budget specifically some money as well. So while you're doing budgeting exercises, please look into your resiliency testing program. That's why resiliency testing is a program. So who all play a role in resiliency test? A quick look at that also. A facilitator. Again, depending upon the size, nature, complexity of the company, as well as of the resiliency test, it may be one person who is designing, developing, and delivering, which means facilitating, or it can be different people. Designing, developing may be multiple people, people from different groups, different departments, but facilitator will be one person. She may be assisted by a few other people. The resiliency manager, if you have a resiliency program, coordinators and champions from different programs, those 11 components, a logger. It could be any one of these also. It may be a special person, loggers generally, because they need to be collecting feedback. They need to be noting observations quickly. So people who play that administrative role, a typist, a clerk, they are much better than people like you and me. In the first three are not so good. The fourth one, logger, may be a specialized role. Your steering committee or committees, critical resources. While we have been going away from the term critical processes, we have started using time-sensitive processes or the prioritized processes. So those resources, those people who work on those prioritized processes, we may replace critical resources with that. But the resources, once again, is people, but non-people resources as well, which includes technology, facility, equipment, etc. Other employees, independent observer, other interested parties. Second last two roles are not necessarily internal. Independent observer may still be an internal person, but other interested parties, what I'm saying is going outside the company. Your customers, regulators, vendors, partners, public, if you can, if you have identified public to be your interested party. Generally, answer would be yes, but still think right. So write what you mean and do what you have written then. We need to spend time on this also, that there may be risk time, not in this session, I mean to say, in designing the resiliency test. There may be risks associated with this. Some quickly I'm showing here. These are some only. The required resources may not be available. Then what will you do? That you have to write in your resiliency test plan, resiliency test program plan. So, and the simple answer could be the backup resources will be working then. A real disaster happens during the test. The good practice is stop the test, take care of the real disaster. A holiday is announced due to some reason. You will have to postpone your test. A breakdown happens during the test. This is just like the second one, perhaps the real disaster happening. But I'm saying breakdown, maybe it's not a disaster or crisis yet, may have impact on your resiliency test for sure. A transport or other type of strike is announced. Test is too complex. And the good practice is Please raise the complexity over time. Look at your maturity, your organization's maturity, the people's maturity, and design the test according to that. Repeatedly, for that reason, it's an art. Lack of communication, lack of preparation, and lack of planning. This preparation, what preparation is required in a resiliency test? This may be including training also. You may need to train people. This may be around communication itself, preparation, that in advance you are telling people. Assume you are creating a scenario that people have to move out with a siren. Now, this is a test only. You do not want all to move out, but only few who are participating in this test. So there has to be a communication with both of them. If you are part of the test, please take action as you have been asked, advised. If you are not, then please do not bother. Today's this alarm at this time is not a real alarm. It's a test only. Some people are participating in that and they only may be moving out. So do not be worried about the unusual movement on the floor. So this is part of preparation. Some other good practices quickly. Increase the complexity over time, which I've said a couple of times. Train people if required. You may have to, you will have to. Cover all relevant interested parties over time. So the first test, all internal. Second, third test onwards, starting involving the other external parties also. You say, now we are involving customer. Next, will involve the vendor also. Next, we will involve the government or the regulator also. Someday, we will involve the members of the public also, citizens. Cover all relevant processes over time. A resiliency test should create least disturbance to the live business. And hence, once again, initially conducting a resiliency test over a weekend is fine. Then conducting a resiliency testing during lean period is fine. But we need to mature and then need to increase the complexity of our resiliency test as well. And communicate well. Follow that cycle. Who communicates, what, to whom, when, and how. All or most of the discussions today were about a designing portion only. So I'm happy to come back, talk about developing and delivering also, so that we complete the cycle of this art, which can be learned and mastered. For every test, every resiliency test, there must be a test plan. Some of the components will be according to the design features that we have discussed. Then after the test, there must be a test report. And I wear my auditor's hat once again, having gone across companies, countries, and industry sectors. Most of us stop at this point. A test report has been produced. If there are any actions, then we need to work on upon closure of action source. The moment we do that also, we have the evidence available. That's very good. But the work is not over just by closing the action. The test case, test condition that failed or didn't work well, that needs to be rerun. Not necessarily the whole test, but the condition that failed or did not meet the specifications or expectations, that needs to be rerun successfully. Then only actually we come to the closure of action. This is what we need to do, which tells us that it's deep. Testing, resiliency testing is a deep discussion. Want to draw your attention to a scary scenario in your upcoming drills or tests or resiliency tests. You could do that. We are happy to help. There is a concept called polycrisis. So not only building failure, building phase, IT phase, disaster, multiple, heavy rains, flooding, some disease starts. Can we do like that? Check on this one, working from home. Can this happen in your organization? Because I keep saying work from home or remote work. Biggest risk is the information security and physical security. The physical security and information security of the office can never be provided at home or at a remote place, from a remote place. So design a test quickly. I've given some input here around that. See if you do well or how do you do. You find the improvements, which is the objective of the test. Not to find faults in people and arrangements, but to find the gaps and improvement options. Or if you see number 3, multiple failures, which is polycrisis, like data theft, social engineering, and credential theft, unauthorized access, DOS attack, which may later on become DDoS, insider act, ransomware attack, lockdown, supply chain failure, flood, fire, earthquake, pandemic, bomb attack, reputational damage due to social media, disgruntled, for example, a disgruntled employee talking negative about some company, your company. This is where I would like to stop. This was the 4th in our series. Today, we talked about the art of designing, developing, and delivering a resiliency test. Most of the time we spent on designing portion. Next 4 sessions coming up here: sustainability and risk, interconnectedness, upstage to integrate risk and VCN, resilience maturity model and assessment tool, and navigating careers in risk and resilience. Please look forward to the communication that keeps coming from us. This way, I would like to stop. We do have some time for questions, and I'm happy to unshare my screen and go full blown. If there are any questions, input, suggestions, recommendations, happy to take those.
No questions as such, Daman, just an observation. I
Yes,
know
please.
that the business, when you speak to the business about carrying out a test,
Yes,
the business, of course, wants a very simple test. And, when we speak about the scenarios like a poly crisis, etc., a
yeah,
lot of pushback on,
I
whether
understand.
we should actually be doing it. And, can we do a tabletop instead of an actual simulation? All these are the kind of challenges that we face.
Right, right. Understood. And first principle is, which perhaps we saw towards the last slides, that a resiliency test should create least disturbance to the live business. So we as resilience people must also understand that. But at the same time, it's a trade-off also. It's the type of or kind of or amount of assurance that you're achieving through simple tests, through tabletop exercises, for example. For that reason, then we are advising, let's keep moving on. We can design it, which I have already discussed during my talk, but I'm repeating, over a period, will keep increasing the complexity. So those
Complex.
scary scenarios or poly crisis that we have said, do not do that immediately, first time, second time, third time. Look at the maturity of the organization also. This is risk management. The overall topic is risk and resilience, the yin and yang of risk and resilience, and we need to look at that. We need to understand business as well, no doubt about it.
I
But
agree.
it
Yeah.
doesn't come free as well. So we will raise the risk with them. See, if we conduct, there is a risk, but if we do not conduct, then also there is a risk that you as business will have less assurance about the plans and arrangements that we have got. It's a long journey. I wouldn't mind to call it's a continual journey. It's a program, 3-5 years, matching with your business strategy. So good that you raised this. Thanks, Krishna. With this, if no more inputs, questions, suggestions, we have crossed the time. Happy to close the session. with an invitation for next Wednesdays also, coming next Wednesdays also, 4 more sessions of this risk and resilience, yin and yang of risk and resilience, brought to you by Udbara Technologies and DVD Training and Consultancy. We would like to thank you and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.